This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. What I'm looking at today is Ghost in a Shell SAC Standalone Complex 2045. And as I said, this is a Netflix anime which brings some strengths as well as some advantages. A strength, I think, is that, well, this is actually typical of most anime, is that the depiction of technology is done most excellently. Technology, architecture, vehicles, this works really well and it looks really great in this series. Unfortunately, what doesn't tend to work so great are people, in the sense of how they look visually. It tends to be simplified and they reside firmly in the Uncanny Valley, particularly their faces, which is what matters, because they don't emote very well. And you see tons of it in Ghost in a Shell. People who just look, essentially, their faces are dead. And I get it. Animating a human face is difficult. There's so many muscles and connections involved. To wink an eye affects your entire face, not just your eye. If you smile, it affects your entire face, not just your mouth. And unfortunately, computer animation at this point, with some exceptions, doesn't seem to do it very well. Remember Tron Legacy? It was the same type of issue. Certain muscles didn't quite work, and they're getting better at it every day. But the thing is, a lot of that technology hasn't filtered down yet. So facial animation seems to be a huge hurdle, and you see it here. These are some of the most dead-eyed looking people, for the most part, I've ever seen. It actually draws me out of it, though there are 12 episodes. So, and I should mention 12 relatively short episodes. I don't think any of them are over a half hour. But it took me a while to get into it because they're not emoting. And that's one way I prefer the hand-drawn animation. You can get emotion with a few lines, and you can get that connection to character because the characters, they emote. These, not so much. Every once in a while it works, but that's kind of rare. And speaking of computer graphics, there's another thing that they're not very good at, and that's crowd scenes. In the sense that there are scenes in this anime where the streets are empty. They shouldn't be empty, but they are empty. And I assume because it's harder to animate lots of individual people and have them actually be individuals as opposed to, let's say, clones. That's just my theory, of course. I don't know why it's like that, but it makes places look like ghost towns. And if you contrast that with the hand-drawn work, draw many people as you like. It just looks more evocative of a city than what we see here, which oftentimes looks like a ghost town. So that's a little irritating. When I was originally conceiving this video, I was thinking of discussing things like how the crew that make up Section 9 in this anime are so much more different than what I'm typically used to. But that's the thing. I've recently learned that Ghost in a Shell is big. In the sense of a universe, there's a lot of it. And it consists of anime, it consists of books, it consists of movies. So I've watched quite a bit of Ghost in a Shell. The thing is, I've not seen enough of it necessarily to say who should be in it or who should not be in it. So when I saw characters like Paz and Saito and Borma appear in Ghost in a Shell, I thought, oh man, now they're adding characters that didn't exist before. They're compromising this work. Though that's not really true. If you look at Ghost in a Shell Arise, which came out, I believe, in 2013, Paz, Saito, and Borma all appear in it. So that's the thing. It depends on not only what you've seen, but when you've seen it. There's a hierarchy, and my thing is, as I said, I've watched quite a bit of Ghost in a Shell, though I haven't watched enough of it to understand all the characters that are in it. So that's on me. and there's nothing wrong with it as depicted in the anime. And speaking of that, another thing that bothered me was the music. There's the opening song, which is, I believe, called Fly With Me by Millennium Parade. And this is a great song. It's an awesome song. I'm just not sure it fits Ghost in the Shell. With Ghost in the Shell, I'm more accustomed to operatic, as in Japanese opera, and very orchestral sounding music. But again, look at Arise. It has an opening that is a very poppy one, the same as this. So this is not unheard of. While I think that the Japanese operatic opening music works better, this is not unheard of. It's a great song, and it's not quite fair to judge it based upon the opening music, because it may not be the operatic type music that I'm accustomed to hearing. Though a significant change is that I'm accustomed to the major being the center of the action. In all the Ghost in the Shell I've seen up to this point, events revolved around the major. And this is more of an ensemble cast. And that's good because, as I mentioned earlier, you're introduced to characters that you traditionally would not see. But it feels a little funny, to be totally honest. I don't mean that as a criticism. I just mean, in the episodes that I've seen, secondary characters were for the most part secondary characters. And to see them take a more forward position is unusual. Again, it's not bad, and it's not a criticism. It's only to say it's something I'm unaccustomed to seeing. Though, if I were to criticize this, I'd have to say that the underlying story is muddled and confusing, which is unusual for Ghost in the Shell, in that it revolves around something called sustainable war, and as it's explained, I'm not sure what it means. Though Japan is reduced to essentially a vassal state of the United States, and it seems like it's trying to do political commentary. That's always welcome, and I always think it's interesting to see how other nations reflect on the United States via their art. But the thing is, as it's presented, it's just kind of weird, and it doesn't make sense. And I wish it did, because I would like to understand it more. And it's dealing with things like the collapse of monetary systems. And I swear to God, I kid you not, but I got a Phantom Menace vibe from that plot line, in the sense that under all the lasers, the spaceships, the Phantom Menace was about trade negotiations, essentially. And that's actually how real things tend to work. But in a movie, it comes off boring. And with Ghost in the Shell, this whole ball of currency and the sustainable war concept, it just didn't make any sense, unfortunately. So I couldn't make heads or tails of it, really. Though the post-human concept was most true to typical Ghost in the Shell, like Laughing Man, which wasn't post-human, but it's the idea that they were tracking down these rogue AIs and that type of stuff. That's kind of a running theme through this series. And so the post-human concept was interesting, though like the sustainable war concept, it wasn't very fleshed out, in the sense that they said something to the effect of, through our interactions with machines, with computers, there came to be post-humans, which are humans but aren't. It was really confusing. I mean, I got what they were trying to do, but how they did it just didn't make a lot of sense. Though, and also I should mention, it's that this is a more, I guess, sentimental Ghost in the Shell than I'm typically used to seeing. I mean, they spend a lot of time with the think tanks, which is probably the best name ever. In any case, they're cute, they're kind of funny, but I wasn't crazy about the emphasis on them. I would have just liked to move beyond them, just see them every once in a while, but, well, that's not really fair. You did actually see them every once in a while, but they tend to emphasize them more than they traditionally do, in my experience. And that kind of bugged me a little. In any case, Ghost in Shell SAC 2045 is pretty good. If you take into account its limitations, you'd probably have a good time watching it. I enjoyed it myself. I wish it were more traditional in its presentation. Heck, I wish it were hand-drawn animation, to be totally honest with you. But for what it is, it's pretty entertaining, and I think you'll enjoy it. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. If you like this video, please consider a like or a follow. Do you agree or disagree with anything I just said? If so, please leave me a comment. Peace.